Now I'm excited to tell you the story because this story is my story, but it's a story that I told one time, then was asked to tell over and over. Now I want you to understand yourself that you are a story in the making. I didn't think that before I made my own story, and I created a future, one worth telling everybody else so they could find their story within my story, which is what I'm about to tell you guys today. It's so important to understand right now. There's fear, there's doubt, there's limiting beliefs, uncertainty, and worry everywhere in the world. But it's normal. Don't worry, guys. If you're feeling these thoughts and feeling these types of emotions, it is okay. In fact, I felt them for a very long time, and it had nothing to do with the external world, which I'll talk about. This is very important to understand that a lot of people are putting their pain and suffering into external events right now, not in controlling them themselves internally. So I'm gonna tell you a story of how I went from the top of the world to the bottom of the world, back up to the top of the world, and how I got to where I am right now, which some of you guys know I run a team of over 2,300 going on 2,400 agents at the time of filming this video. I built a successful real estate investment business and a couple other businesses along the way. Now, it wasn't always this way, and it wasn't always this easy, and I doubted myself the whole time, and I struggled. One thing I know for sure is everybody likes a comeback story, at least people that need to come back. And unfortunately, in the world right now, we need a lot of comebacks. And if you're in fear, and if you're worrying, if you have limiting beliefs, doubt, certainty, all the negative things that you traditionally feel when things aren't going the way that you want, I think this video is gonna help you. I think this story is really gonna help you. Now I'm gonna tell you my story, how I went from the top of the world to the bottom of the world, probably even lower than that, and back up like a rocket ship, one of those rise from the ashes like a phoenix type of story. And I want you to find your story in my story, because if you didn't know it, you are a story. And this is so important for you to understand. You have a starting point and an ending point, just like a movie, just like a YouTube video, and everything that happens in between is what happens in between. Since you have starting point and ending point, and you're not the ending point, you can change the end of the movie. You can change the end of the story. I didn't think this. I thought the way my story started was the way it was gonna end. And I came across some information, which I'm gonna talk about where and how, that completely changed my thought process on life and led me to be a different person, becoming a different person, I must say, changing the way I looked at life, bettering my life in every way. And here I am right now telling the story. So that being said, let's dig on into it, guys. And I hope you like the story and hope it motivates you. And I hope you find your story, my story, and leave a comment below if this did impact you guys in any way. And if you could, subscribe to the channel, guys, if you haven't already done so, especially if you watch this video and you learned something or felt something that helped you out. Okay, that being said, let's get into it. Now here's how it all started, guys. What happened for me was this. I went off to the University of Oklahoma in 2003. I went up there to get a business marketing degree. I live in Dallas, Texas. And what actually happened for me was, well, my parents weren't too proud of it, but I majored in online poker. What happened was technology, just like in every industry right now, infused itself into a brick and mortar model. Online poker started, and there was a huge online poker boom. What happened was a man named Chris Moneymaker. He was an accountant from, I think, Tennessee or something like that. He put $40 into a poker site, won a big seat into a bigger tournament, the big main event, World Series of Poker main event that you guys see on TV. And somehow he won it and made millions of dollars, and every kid's head in college across North America went poof and exploded and said, I can take $40 from my parents, put it into a website, and turn it into millions. Sounds like a lot better thing to do than working for a boss, if that makes sense. And what happened was there's an online poker boom. And I was part of this. And I started playing for pennies and dollars and tens of dollars and thousands of dollars, then tens of thousands of dollars and more. And I became one of the top online poker players in the world. And I did this very successfully. In fact, I almost wanted to drop out of college between my sophomore and junior year, but out of respect for my parents I love very much, I just went ahead and finished out for them to get my degree. And it was also a good thing to do so. But after that, all I did was play poker for a very long time. And I had a very great life. I had the cars I wanted, the watches I wanted, the clothes, the food, the travel, the experiences, the girlfriends, everything that was what we wanted to have when we were a young kid, right? And I was living the life. And then I had a bad day happen. And I learned the tough part about life, which is it is something that you cannot always expect to go right. In fact, many times in life, it will not. And what happened was on April 15th, 2011, I woke up on a day called Black Friday, and it was the day the United States Department of Justice seized the biggest poker sites that I used to make my living on. Now, there's all sorts of things happening behind the scenes. I'm not quite sure actually what was going on, but a lot of it was probably money laundering and not being able to tax these websites or whatever it is. But when government can't get their hands in the cookie jar, they either destroy it or figure out how to get their hands in the cookie jar, and they couldn't, so they basically destroyed it. It's kind of the underlying theme of what happened with what most of us believe actually happened. Now think about this. Emotionalize this. Stand outside your shoes and stand in my shoes real quick, because I know you're probably struggling right now if you're watching this video all the way up until this moment. Now, when we understand others' pain, we can find our pain in their pain, and when they tell us how they got away from it, we can follow in that path, if that makes sense. What was happening for me is I lost my identity, and every single thing that I knew, and every person I knew was in this poker world. All my friends, every single dollar that I made, I had one income stream. It was my entire world, and it disappeared. Now, what made it so mentally tough for me was it wasn't that I just lost, right? I didn't lose all my money. Trust me, I did that plenty of times on my own. This time, actually, it was not my fault, right? Government regulation stole my career. This is why we need to be very careful who we put in government, right? Also, we need to have a backup plan, multiple streams of income. We need to have a leverage of our life so that if this happens, we're not stuck with one income stream that can put us out of business, if that makes sense. So I pretty much lost my entire identity. Every single thing in my entire world disappeared overnight, and almost 10 years of everything I earned as far as work ethic, sacrifice, education, had no value to it anymore. At least at the moment, we were hopeful that online poker would come back, but it didn't. And so what I did instead was I gambled off the rest of my money. I went up to WinStar Casino at the border of Oklahoma, Texas, and I basically built that thing. That's why it's so nice. You can see all the granite and all the nice finish outs. They probably used my money to do it because I gambled off a small fortune. And I was in a very bad emotional state, as you can imagine, and I made a bunch of mistakes. And when we make mistakes, we create a shifted, tilted mindset that leads to more mistakes that can also lead us to going broke, which is what happened to me. So if you guys are struggling right now and you're dealing with business issues, slow down, remove your emotional mind, make decisions with your logical mind, because you can make bad decisions quickly that can take years to get out of. Now, here's what happened for me. So I basically moved back home with my parents, moved into my house that I grew up in, and I couldn't even move into my own room, as bad as that sounds. I actually had to move into my older sister's bedroom, believe it or not, because my bedroom was now in storage, and it was just a bunch of stuff in there. And so here I am trying to figure out how I went from the top of the world, having everything that I wanted for the most part. Now I'm living in my sister's bedroom in my late 20s, with a tiny little bed that I'm bigger than and a tiny little desk the size of a bar stool, trying to figure out what I'm gonna do in life. And for 2 years, I just kind of played poor me. I waited for everything to kind of come back into the way it was, and I realized it was never gonna get there. And I actually fell into a deep, dark depression. And what happened for me was I really fell off the map, and I actually fell into a suicidal moment in my life. And I hope you guys, if you hear this right now, I want you to understand, no storm lasts forever. I'm here right now running some massively large businesses. You can look into me, and I have a great life, but I had a life at one moment that I didn't want to have at that moment, if that makes sense. So be very careful right now on the thoughts that you choose to sink into and believe, because they're not always real, and no storm lasts forever. But at the time when I thought that the storm was going to continually last, meaning throughout my whole life, that this was the best it was going to be, that was the overwhelming lacking of uncertainty or lacking of certainty that kind of put me in that spot. So what happened was I had this great life where I had things going, and then I lost it, and I convinced myself that my past was my best and I never have a better future. And I said that was my one glory moment, and the rest of my life's just gonna be, mundane and never gonna be what I had before. And I convinced myself that I'd already lived the best part of my life, and the worst part of my life is coming. Very detrimental in the thought process, right? So be careful what you tell yourself, because what you tell yourself you will believe, because it just simply wasn't true. So what happened was I really started struggling, and I started going on the internet trying to figure out how to help myself, because I was too prideful, I guess you could say, even at the rock bottom moment where I was emotionally bankrupt, spiritually bankrupt, physically bankrupt in every way, to go talk to someone to get help. So what I did was I started doing my own research on the internet. Probably not the best thing, but in this case, actually worked out pretty good, because what happened for me was I came across some black and white recordings of a man named Napoleon Hill. Now, Napoleon Hill has his 17 principles of success: definite purpose, mastermind connection, applied faith, and so on, going the extra mile. You guys have probably heard about this, read the book, or seen these recordings. And I had no idea who Napoleon Hill was. And I started listening to these recordings, and I said, this is so different. I've never heard of anybody talk like this before. Not my parents, not my local mentors around me, that at least the ones I have right now that I thought were mentors that really weren't. I really didn't hear anybody talking the way that I heard Napoleon talking, and I said, this has to be something different that I need to look into. And so what I did was I went through all those recordings, of the black and white recordings of 17 Principles of Success, which led me to a couple books of his. One was Think and Grow Rich. Not being cliche whatsoever, guys. I read Think and Grow Rich, and it made me think, and I grew rich. I'm not even kidding you. And it's not cliche. I have nothing to sell you on this channel. I'm here actually just trying to help you guys. The only thing I ever ask is if you're a real estate agent and you want to work with me, reach out to me, guys. I run a top team here at Exp Realty called the Wolfpack, right? So basically what happened to me was I started coming down the path of self-education and personal education. If you don't know Napoleon Hill and Think and Grow Rich, he basically interviewed the most successful people in the world over a 20-year window of time and found all their common traits and every commonality about them to create the first comprehensive book on success and how to become successful. He was introduced to this philosophy of life by Andrew Carnegie at the time, who is the wealthiest man in the world. So I would highly recommend, if you want to become wealthy, study what's created wealth for so many other people, which is the processes that are taught in that book. So what this actually did was it made me realize I wasn't thinking. And what I was thinking about was incorrect, because what I was thinking about was external blame. God, government, parents, poker sites, anything and everything I could blame but myself. The bird outside, the carpet, the water, it didn't matter as long as it wasn't my fault. I was already in a bad enough spot. Let's not put more stress on my shoulders right now. So this is very important to understand in my story, guys, if you're watching this right now still. It wasn't until I took massive self-blame and full responsibility. You hear people saying this. I actually had to do this because here's the reason why. Most people won't tell you the why though. I took full responsibility because I realized at one moment, all the things that were stressing me out, the lacking of a career, the lacking of a future, everything around me, I realized that none of this would change and I couldn't force it to change. And I wanted to change because I didn't like the environment I was living in. I didn't feel good in my body. I didn't feel good in my life and I needed to change, right? But if everything around me wasn't gonna change, then where am I gonna end up, right? These are the looping thoughts that kept going in my mind. Nothing around me is gonna change. And if I feel so horrible right now, then the future is gonna be a lot more of the same. Do I really wanna feel this forever? Type of mentality, right? That's kind of how some of us get caught in those thoughts. So what I realized was, in order for everybody around me to change and everything around me and the people, the environment, all this, I had to change. I said, if I change the way I treat people, if I stop giving them attitude, start treating them respectful, will they give a different response to me? If I look at life differently, instead of blaming others, but blame myself, do I have the control to fix things on my own? Yes, I do. So I realized I'm gonna start blaming myself, taking full control. Everything's my fault. So what I did was I said, instead of blaming the poker sites, I'm gonna blame myself. I had enough money at a young age. If I invested it, I would have never had to work again. So it wasn't the poker site that they went away. It wasn't the government's fault that they took them away. It's my fault that I didn't do better things with the money when I had it. So these are the internal self-blame thoughts that I started shifting from blaming external events to blaming myself. Now what happened in this process was I started to embolden myself, empower myself. I started to build my self-esteem. I started to believe that I could think my way out of this problem if I knew how to fix myself by changing myself, by building myself up through personal development and self-education and becoming all I can be, meaning being all I can be in every area of my life. And this is the moment when I came across personal education and I fell down heavily into educating myself, because what happens in life is this: when we fear something, it's because we don't have enough information on it. Think about if you're gonna go ask a girl out or ask a boy out, whichever one you are, but you don't know if they're gonna say yes or not. The fear may be too high to hold and it may hold you back. But if you know their friend told you that they actually liked you, the information that came in, the knowledge that I have now, takes away the risk, takes away the fear because I know they like me. Now it's easy to go ask them out, right? So what I realized was education, if fear is caused by lacking of knowing or not enough information, education is gonna fill in those gaps and it's gonna take away my fear and risk. And that's what I did. So I fell heavily into self-development, and here's where my problems started actually. I believed it, right? The law of attraction, law of vibration, I got heavily into this and I started taking action. And it did not go well. Think of this right now, guys. If you're in your process of self-development, personal education, is it working right now? Because for me, what happened was it didn't work very well. I went $100,000 in debt. And this was after I went into deciding to start a new career. I decided I was gonna go into real estate of all things because I wanted to build passive income or residual income. And I decided I was gonna buy rental properties. And so basically what I did was I went through this training company and I put up $35,000 and it did not work out. And I started doing everything they were saying and I started going backwards and getting into debt. And this is a very tough time for me. Take into consideration, I'm already struggling in life. Everything's already falling apart. I have no money and I'm living at home. And what am I supposed to do in this moment? I had a couple choices actually. I had one, to throw in the towel, take the easy route, just put all my problems off on someone else and file bankruptcy. Or what I could do is pick up a broom and sweep floors for minimum wage while I taught myself how to build a business around those work hours. So what I was doing was I was working 12, 16, 18-hour days sometimes. And on the side, I was working minimum wage job. I chose to pick up a broom, believe it or not, and sweep floors at Academy Sports and Outdoors here in Plano, Texas. Now here's what my life looked like at the time, guys. Every single time my boss put a broom in my hand, he laughed at me. I used to think about the memories I had when I was on top of the world with my friends and we all had a great life. This is the thoughts that were going through my mind as I was on my hands and knees, cleaning the floor, picking up BBs on a very tough night, 2 days before Christmas, as we just went through Christmas, many years ago. I remember my name got called over. And this was kind of that rock bottom moment. So every rock bottom moment has a V moment. Think about stock market. This was mine. I was sitting there working for minimum wage a couple days before Christmas, and this kid thought it'd be hilarious to give me a Christmas present. And he took about 50,000 airsoft BBs and took the top off and threw them all across the floor. It was my job to sweep them up. And my 18-year-old boss put a broom in my hand and said, here you go, sweep them up. And I tried, but it didn't work very well. As you can imagine, I had a plastic pan and plastic BBs, and as they're bouncing in, they bounced out. And you know what I had to do? I actually had to get on my hands and knees and pick these up one by one or slowly roll them in. It took me 3 or 4 hours to pick these BBs up. But as I was on my knees, I reflected on anything and everything that I've been going through. And this is the moment when I decided it does not matter what I deal with. It does not matter who comes in my path that's gonna get in my way. No matter what I go up against, I will overcome this. I will become successful no matter what, whether I have to eat, drink, sleep, do anything again, I will figure this out. And I made a commitment to myself and under God, I said, this is something I'm going to do no matter what. I had a defining moment at that moment that I was going to plant my flag in the ground and I would make it. And guess what happened? I kept pushing and I was building these websites out and my rankings started going up from page 4 to page 3 to page 2 to page 1. And a little bit a year later or so after I started this process, my pages or my websites hit page 1 on the Google rankings for house acquisition for motivated sellers. And guess what happened then? I started getting a ton of leads and I started having leads come in the office and I went from having no leads and no deals, $100,000 in debt, to too many leads coming in too fast I couldn't work them. And what happened was I started doing what's called wholesaling houses. So I started wholesaling houses all across North Texas. And then I started to get to where I could acquire properties through using hard money lenders and private money lenders, and I started flipping houses myself. Then I started buying rental properties with seller financing and learning how to buy properties with partners and doing JV equity partnerships and things like that. Then I became financeable along the way, started buying properties, and then I realized that rentals are pretty good cash flow, but they're not as much passive as I wanted. So I went into the owner financing space. I started creating notes, selling notes, and basically went down the entire process of single family residential real estate, from land to mobile homes on land, and a lot in that kind of space and around exiting strategies surrounding that space. And along the way, I realized what I had done through my personal education process, where I hit the bottom, came out, started over, and I realized this was something that I had done that could be recreated, that this was not something that was something I was special for, that this is something that anybody could do. And so what happened was I decided I was going to start a YouTube channel called Investor Army. Now at the time, this was experimental for me because Investor Army was my first really shot at YouTube as far as getting my face out there. I built other YouTube channels to help me with marketing, but not actually a personal branded channel or a channel where I put my face on it. And all I did was I started telling people the problems I was facing in my business and what they caused me to have to go up against and how I overcame them. And that's how it started. And before I knew it, my channel took off. It took years of struggle doing that as well. And before I knew it, I built the #1 YouTube channel in North Texas, or in Texas in general, and one of the top in North America for residential real estate investing. That channel is called Investor Army. Now, as this channel took off, guess what else happened? A lot of other business opportunities came up along the way. I met incredible entrepreneurs, mentors along the way. I built other successful businesses, and I had one specifically that came into my attention back around 2016. Is a brokerage called Exp Realty. I had a lot of people reaching out to me about this company, and I was like, well, I'm not even a licensed real estate agent, so it probably won't work out for me. And so for about 2 years, I blew everybody off, and I wouldn't let anybody really bring this up to me. And a lot of people are probably thinking the same thing about Exp Realty. One of the biggest reasons I see people kind of turn the head to the model is because of inaccurate information, or they just believe they're too busy to think they want to take a look at an opportunity, because what if they actually want to take the opportunity? Which I think that's really where I was at. I didn't want to actually really go down the path because I knew it sounded pretty good and I'd probably have to do it. And that's actually what happened, because after years of blowing off, God works in weird ways. I was speaking at a big investment conference in Mississippi, and what happened for me was the #1 team leader at EXP was speaking at that same event. And I was put into a speaker's house for a couple of days with this individual. He was able to show me that he was making $100,000 a month in residual income with his real estate license in just barely over a couple of years, with no tenants, toilets, termites, or debt. And I said, this sounds like it could be a better option for me. If you prove to me this is real, I will quit what I'm doing and I will come work with you, and I'll build a large organization all around the world. It's just like that scene from Wolf of Wall Street, right? You guys have seen that. You prove to me you're making like $72K a month or whatever it is. I quit my job, I work for you. And they're at the diner, he picks up the phone and calls his boss.
What's up? No, everything's fine. Hey, listen, I quit.
That's kind of what this was like, and he proved it to me. And I was like, this is something that's gonna change the industry. It's gonna change my career for sure. And I set a goal to build a team of 1,000 agents in the next 36 months as a non-licensed individual, which sounds crazy. And I got back and I went to get my real estate license. I joined Exp Realty, and it took me, I think it was right around 40 months to get to 1,000 agents. So the reason I tell you this is because the few of you that are watching right now, because I know on YouTube, most people don't make it to the end. If you did, this is emotionally connecting to you. You're probably trying to find your story in my story, and you're probably distraught in some way of your life right now. You're probably struggling with fear, panic, worry, doubt, limiting beliefs. It's normal. It's okay. In fact, if I did not go through those days, I could not become who I am right now. I needed those days. I missed those days, as weird as that sounds. So I want to talk to you right now, and I want to give you a message. Stand strong, believe in yourself, be honorable, set a goal of who you want to be. Don't think about who you have been in the past. No matter what you've done in the past, no matter how bad it's actually been, no matter what you've actually done, your past does not dictate your future. And this is what I got caught up in myself. That's what ruined my future for so long, was I looked at a past I wasn't proud of. And I said, if this is my past, how could I be rewarded with a better future? And I realized it was a wrong thought process, and I shifted my thought process, and it started with Think and Grow Rich and those self-development practices. So go start this in your own life. But what I want you to understand is nothing you've done up until this moment affects what you're going to do going forward. So set those goals big, believe in your goals, and keep going. Because currently right now, I have a great life. And if you would have told me this 10 years ago, I would have never said this was possible. And I want you to look back 10 years from now, watching a video like this and others out there trying to inspire yourself to become more, looking back in the future at yourself at the present moment today saying, I'm proud of myself, I knew I could do it, and look at that. Who would have thought that I could come from there and got all the way here? This can happen for you, it happened for me, it's happened for many others. I believe in you, even though I don't know you, because I know that you need to believe in yourself, and that's the first step. And sometimes someone else believing in you first gets the belief in ourselves high enough to take that first step, walking towards the light in any direction, and if we walk towards the light for long enough, the darkness falls away, and we move into a new world, a new future, and a better life. I hope this helped, guys. If it did, subscribe to the channel. Watch these future videos coming out. I'm really going to try to help you this year in 2023. So I hope this helped, guys. I'll see you on the next one, and have a good day.